Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months.
Go to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, the Bolts are 2-0 for the first time since 2012. Man, what was going on back in 2012, man? Fresh out of high school, big star in his eyes, director. Going out into the world for the first time. Man, I don't know about you dudes, but it's been a minute since the Chargers have been in the headlines. I just saw the Chargers make the top 10 NFL power rankings for the NFL just yesterday, which is insane to me. And honestly, it's starting to surface the question in the NFL community: is this team for real? Are the Chargers legitimate playoff threats, or is this easy beginning of the schedule kind of masking what could be what ESPN is labeling as a pretender? Chargers 2-0. When it comes down to it, when it get closer to the playoff season, are they going to be able to stack up? I'm actually making this video because of this post right here. This did get me a little bit heated. Of course, I think the Chargers are playoff contenders, but I had to do my research, man. I went through and I looked at maybe some of the most compelling evidence that I've looked at so far in terms of supporting the Chargers being an actual threat this season, and it'll be something that I think right now, us as Chargers fans, we don't even realize. We're at the beginning of what is going to be a very powerful and interesting story for the Chargers in this particular season. I'm very excited to go over it with you guys. Before we do, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers take advantage of the free Patrick Mahomes pick. And I think every existing user also gets access to the CeeDee Lamb pick. And guys, if you're not using these tokens at the top of the NFL pick'ems, you're playing Underdog wrong. I look forward to every single day seeing what free picks we got on there. And if you just even use those, your chances of hitting are pretty high. I would definitely get your feet wet in that arena. Before we do kick things off, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, the small amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
Are the Chargers indeed a serious playoff contender? We're going to break it down in today's video. Matter of fact, right now, you take a look at the top talking topics in the NFL. The Chargers are indeed among one of 10 teams that are right now undefeated, which again, strength of schedule is going to be a big reason for this. The Chargers opening up the season versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Many would have considered at the top of the season not the biggest threat in terms of stopping you to get into the postseason, especially in the AFC West, which is stacked with coaching and quarterback talent. You got the Reeds and the Patrick Mahomes. You got the Harbaughs and the Herberts. And although Denver is still working on the quarterback position, they do got Sean Payton out there. I think Vegas was properly buried in the view of NFL fans and how serious a contender they would be. However, I'm going to say this right now, man. I said this in my game preview of the Raiders. Do not take that team lightly this season, man. They have themselves one of the scarier defensive lines you're going to find in football. And in my opinion, if you can get to the quarterback, you got as good a shot as anybody as boosting your odds to win in any given week. And with Max Crosby and now Christian Wilkins, one of, I would say, the best interior defensive linemen in football, the Raiders could indeed have something there. And I think that's evident to what they did this last weekend versus the Baltimore Ravens, taking them down in spectacular fashion. That just goes to show that they were not pushovers, and the Chargers' victory in Week 1, although easily dismissed by a majority of NFL fans, you got to say that was for real. That was legit. That was a legitimate win, and one that's going to be even tougher fought in the next matchup the Chargers will have versus the Raiders in their home turf at Allegiant Stadium. Then you move on to the Chargers Week 2 matchup versus the Carolina Panthers, and I'll have to say with everybody, yeah, I agree with you there. The Chargers, indeed, were heavily favored to win that game. The Carolina Panthers, viewed as the worst team in football. that's not going to help our chances at convincing anybody that that was a legit that keeps us in a legitimate playoff contender views, right? It's the Carolina Panthers. However, I did also say in my game preview video, I'm pushing the game preview videos on you guys, that it's equally as important how the Chargers win that game as it is they actually win that game. What I would mean by that is you can't go in there and Brandon Staley this win, right? Where you grab the lead, you make it close in the end, you play conservative, rinse and repeat, heart attacks in the fourth quarter, Chargers barely escape with a dub here. No, this is the Jim Harbaugh era. In order to prove you're still a contender, even versus a weaker team like Carolina, you got to go in there and stomp their lights out, stay in control, and keep the scoreboard in front of you, right? Or keep the score ahead of you. And I really do think the Chargers accomplished that. They looked like a serious football team, taking down a less than serious football team, and they did it in a way that was still convincing to me of them being a contender. Where does that leave the Chargers as of right now? Well, the Chargers, in terms of odds, and this is, I would say, very much so boosted because of the win-loss percentage right now, Chargers 2-0 and only among 10 teams that are 2-0, have a 69% chance of making the postseason. Now, you tell yourself, director, that's pretty cool, but, so early in the season, how can we possibly, take these two games as a sample size and give ourselves legitimate evidence as to how well the Chargers will perform the rest of the season to the prediction of making the postseason in Jim Harbaugh's very first year? Well, to do that, guys, I got something prepared for you that I wasn't planning on doing today, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to go over the Chargers' remaining schedule in 2024 and show you guys why I think it is a very legitimate and serious idea that the Chargers will be playoff contenders this season. They will be legitimate threats. And once in the postseason, the Chargers could be a serious threat to make it pretty far in the tournament. Now, like we said earlier, the Chargers, as a result of playing the Vegas Raiders, would win that game 22-10. Again, just watch the Raiders have a not terrible season this year, man, and the legitimacy of that win will continue to grow, okay? Week 2, the Chargers handedly take care of business versus the Carolina Panthers. Definitely not too shocking there, putting the Chargers at 2-0, again, for the first time since 2012. Now let's take a look at this matchup here, man. This is going to be a big game for a lot of reasons. TJ Watt, who in my opinion is the best defensive player in football, going up against rookie sensation Joe Alt at right tackle. You're going to see a battle right there. Already the popcorn's coming out. We're excited. You got two very seasoned, very peppered with accomplishment head coaches and Mike Tomlin and Jim Harbaugh. You got yourself a battle of the bruising running attack and legitimate tough threats on defense. I love this matchup, especially if you're like an old school, fan of football, like the really rough and tough in the dirt kind of style of play. You're going to love this game, man. I don't even know if 17-13 is going to be an end result. What is that? A total of 30 points? I don't even know if we're going to hit that in this game. I think it's going to be very defensive oriented, and it's going to be a rough and tough one as represented by both of their coaches. But this is going to be a very important game. And I think it really all starts right here. The crossroads in which the Chargers taking, the playoff route, or maybe the still kind of retooling and figuring themselves out route, I think it starts in week 3. The Bolts are going to have to take down what, in my opinion, is a very serious threat in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm taking this team extremely serious, even though, the quarterback situation could be better. And, even though they're off to a good start in the win column, a lot of people think that, maybe they're going to have some slippery slopes to navigate along the way. I really do take the Steelers very seriously. And I think this could be the beginnings of showing the NFL world how serious the Chargers are, on the same breath there. And in this game, I do have the Chargers taking them down 17-13, in which, again, kind of sets us on course of something that could become a very memorable season for Chargers fans. And maybe the biggest reason why this season could be a legitimate success for this team does come down to the schedule. And again, games like this are very important, but just watch and see what happens as we navigate even past the bye week, okay? Now, real quickly, the Chargers week 4 taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if we're quite there yet for me, okay? The Kansas City Chiefs, still the reigning Super Bowl champions. This is a very serious team still, man. They got Patrick Mahomes. Even though Travis Kelce's off to a slow start, this team is still very much so also maybe the best in football. Okay, and I don't know if the Chargers are quite to the point yet where I'm like, hey, yeah, let's go in there and take down the reigning Super Bowl champions. But I think we're going to put on a closer performance than people are predicting for us. Yes, the Chargers 24-34 isn't crazy, but I think there's going to be moments in this game where you're like, hey, the Chargers might have had them. The Chargers were close here and there, and I know there's a lot of people out there saying, I'm done with being close, I want to be on top. I understand that, but there has to be a ladder you're climbing in there. And I think 3-1 to start the season before going into your bye week in week 5 is a very good start. Especially considering, yeah, you got to take care of business versus the Raiders. You got Pittsburgh, which I think is going to be a very good team. I think the Chargers can take them down. 3-1 going into the bye week is a really, really good start for Jim Harbaugh. Now watch what happens after the bye week, man. And this is where things get really, really crazy. And this is why people are like, Director, you know, you're crazy to be giving the Chargers double-digit wins after the Brandon Staley season last year. Do you really think they're going to bounce back this aggressively in the first season of Jim Harbaugh? Yeah, I do. Watch what happens after the bye week here, baby. The Chargers, week 6, are going to be going into Mile High and taking on the Denver Broncos. I don't think it's any secret that the Denver Broncos are still figuring stuff out. Sure, they've got some weapons out there. Bo Nix could end up being something. I think it's too early to say, but I do believe the Chargers do handle things, or should say take care of business, similar to the Carolina Panthers. I do believe the Broncos are a better team than the Panthers, but I also think the Chargers would be very well to use the same kind of strategy here, right? Let's keep the score in front of us, get that run game established. I don't think the Denver Broncos are quite well equipped to stop both the Justin Herbert and a running attack. Minus, or I should say even additional to that, you have this defense that's going to really make life difficult on both Bo Nix and Javonte Williams. I think that's a 4-1 start for the Chargers here yet again. First 5 games, 4 wins. That's pretty big. And again, nothing crazy in the scoring column here. Chargers 23 points. You don't need to be Patrick Mahomes putting up 40 points a week to win under Jim Harbaugh. The Chargers go into Mile High and they win a game there. Look at week 7. Now, I'm going to say this right now. I think this is going to be a tough battle. And I think the Chargers, there's a shot that maybe they do stumble on this one. But I'm going with my gut feeling here, man. And some people are going to very much so disagree with this video, say it's too optimistic. I honestly, guys, just watch how the schedule unfolds from here on out. Okay? Week 7, Arizona Cardinals. They got themselves some pieces out here. They got, James Conner's having a pretty good season. Marvin Harrison may have had his breakout game this last week. Kyler Murray's having a pretty good year. But I don't know if they've faced a team quite like the Chargers yet, man. This defense is going to be something real. And I think this will help limit them to under 20 points. And right now, Justin Herbert is undefeated when his defense limits a team to 20 points or less. And I think that continues on here. The Chargers win this one, going 5-1 in the first 6 weeks. 24-18 is your score, which feels very appropriate to me. Week 8, the Chargers and Saints. Now, you guys are not going to like this one. I don't know. I'm sorry. I've said this since the beginning of this season. The first time I did this schedule breakdown and prediction, I said I have a feeling about the Saints, and right now they're off to a tremendous start. Right? Are they for real? I don't know. They could be. But at this point, I'm still kind of going off my gut of what I thought was going to happen at the beginning of the season. I'm kind of sticking to it here. The Chargers, again, starting 5-2. They'll lose this one 16-21. We're going to lose some games, guys. Don't be too offended by that idea. But right now, 5-2 is still very impressive. The Saints could end up being a pretty big threat this season. And again, keeping games close is always a big deal as well with these serious contenders too. You want to make sure that you can dance with them when push comes to shove in the postseason. Week 9, the Chargers will be facing the Cleveland Browns, who have seen better days. Now, at this point, do we see Nick Chubb back? Maybe. I don't know. Denzel Ward still pretty good. Myles Garrett, one of the best pass rushers in football. I think it's very close between him and T.J. Watt, but they're not off to a great start. And again, I love matchups like this where it's going to pit us up against, other teams ran very similar to us. I think we can do it better. And I think Jim Harbaugh proves that by limiting this offense, or their offense, to under 10 points. Chargers need to do just enough to stay in front of them. And again, this rough and tough matchup results in a 17-9 score and a 6-2 start to the Chargers. Does that seem too far out of the realm of possibility, guys? I don't think so. I think 6-2 is very reasonable to think about. Next up, Week 10, the power of the strength of schedule in 2024, ladies and gentlemen. The Tennessee Titans. I get it. Don't take any NFL opponent lightly. I got my earful of that this last week going up against Carolina, even though I was coming off as kind of arrogant and confident in that matchup. I think everything kind of lined up the way I thought it would. And again, I'm kind of feeling the same way with some of the matchups coming up later this year, including the Tennessee Titans matchup. Yeah, they've got DeAndre Hopkins. They got Pollard, who's looking actually not too bad in his new city. L'Jarius Sneed. They got some pieces, but ultimately, they're not really showing any signs of being anything crazy. And I think this is a team that is easily scored on, especially if you're talking to what the Chargers are going to be rolling in there with. So I think, again, Chargers 31-16. I think that'll be one of those games that the Chargers really kind of force their will on the opposing team. And again, that's a 7-2 start. Is it crazy to think 7-2 is too far out of reach? I don't think it is. I don't think it's crazy. Week 11, Chargers take on the Bengals. We'll go ahead and throw up another loss here, okay? Because I think, yeah, this will be a tougher team by that point of the season. They're kind of ramping up right now. The Joe Burrow-Jamar Chase connection is still kind of heating up. There's things happening behind the scenes, but ultimately we know the Bengals and their potential, and I think they're going to have themselves a nice streak around this point of the season. And I think this will be a fun game. I think the Chargers keep it within one score. But ultimately, putting the Chargers at 7-3 to start the season is not a bad start either, man. Like, that's crazy. Going into week 11 and still having 7 wins is awesome. Okay? So let's say the Chargers 7-3, they stumble one game there. Well, watch what happens here, dude. And this is something that I think is going to really separate us from years past. In order to be a serious contender, you're going to have to take down a serious contender or two on your schedule. And this is where I have a huge pivot from where I started at the top of the season. I got the Chargers taking down the Baltimore Ravens 24-21 in the Har Bowl of 2024. This might end up being a game I go to. I don't know. I'm very excited for this game. The narratives are up the wazoo. A team that we're emulating. A lot of people calling us the Ravens West, right? Some people saying we have sucked the life force. I'm saying that out of the Ravens and that we're the new improved Baltimore Ravens West. You got 2 head coaches, brothers, haven't played each other since the Har Bowl, Super Bowl, way back when. There's a lot of narratives leading up to this game. And honestly, this is one of those tests where I'm like, let's do it. Let's go out there and show them that we can do what you're doing, but do it better. And again, it's a cool narrative. I think that the brother aspect of it is going to bubble to the surface for a lot of people, but I also think that it just shows that Jim Harbaugh was always ready to take on this role and that he's in the right spot and that he's got a lot of momentum. And I think that if there's one game this season that we take down a real contender, I think this would be the best one in my opinion. Let's move on into that role. Chargers win this one 24-21. Very close, but an 8-3 record at week 12. I think, again, very obtainable. Look at the rest of this schedule, too, man. Maybe one more game where I'm like, we'll see. Chargers, Atlanta Falcons. I still think the Falcons figure themselves out at some point. I think Kirk Cousins is too good of a talent. I think he's still settling in to the whole Falcons system. But Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, that whole offense, Drake London, I think they're going to continue to grow, and I think they're going to start being a team that puts up a lot of points. I got the Chargers letting up 21 points in this matchup, but burying them on the scoreboard 38-21 because, again, their defense needs some help. And I think the Chargers are going to take advantage of that, especially on the ground, forcing Atlanta to continue throwing, but keeping the Chargers ahead because of the ground game. And I think by this point, the Chargers' ground game is going to be even better than it is now, which is crazy to think about, right? The Chargers now 9-3. This next matchup, Week 14. Some of you guys are going to push back on this. And I kind of agree. I think the Chargers are very much so capable of taking down the Kansas City Chiefs once this season. I really do honestly feel that way. Will it happen in Week 14? I'm going to predict not quite yet. The Chargers get very close. Closer than the last matchup. And this is at Arrowhead, okay? Losing this one 28-31, putting them at a record of 9-4, okay? The way that they lose this game, though, is going to be one that they learn from, because this is not the last time I predict the Chargers play them in 2024. The next time the Chargers play the Chiefs will be for all the marbles, in my opinion. And this matchup here, although again another tick in the losing column, will reflect that they can dance. They can go toe to toe with the former Super Bowl champion. And if it were not for one play, one penalty, one mistake, the Chargers would end up on top. And I think that's something that they're going to learn from tremendously, and maybe even find a way to come out on top the next time they meet in the postseason, which would be a crazy narrative there. Again, maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but I do think it's a lot closer. I don't have them quite beating the Chiefs yet, but I think they're going to get a lot closer than people think. And I think when it really matters, the Chargers will be ready if they see them in the postseason. Look at the rest of this schedule here, man. Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, I view, as a very legitimate team this year. And it's one that I think the Chargers... did I flip the scores on accident here? I hope I didn't. I did. This is one I think the Chargers can win. Let me go ahead and edit this real quick. I had the Chargers actually winning this one, 25-21, putting them at 10-4 after the loss to Kansas City, right? Yeah. All right. After the loss to Kansas City, again, proving that they're a very capable team, but going up against another really, really good team, I still think the Chargers end up on top. And even though, again, they could end up losing this one and still be at 9-4, which is very impressive. But I got them winning this game, coming off the momentum and the bounce back of almost taking down the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 14. Then the rest of this month, man, I got to say, yeah, I'll be happy about this one. The Chargers take on the Broncos again, this time at home at SoFi Stadium. I think we handle it very candidly. 27-17 is a score, going 11-4 at Week 16. Week 17, the Chargers take on the New England Patriots. I honestly think this will be maybe a score very similar to the Carolina Panthers game. Record of 12-4. Let's not take for granted, or let's not take lightly what the Patriots are doing, though. They've actually been sneakily pretty good this season. That puts us at 12-4. And then finally, the Chargers taking on the Raiders one last time. I think, again, this will be one that is very determined by what's happening in terms of the postseason. I think the Chargers could easily rest their starters this game, and we could end up going, 12-3, or excuse me, 12-5. But if it were just toe-to-toe, I think the Chargers do find a way to really put them down this last week, just as a revenge narrative from last season, which, again, season total 13-4 playoff bound. This is where I take a step back and I look at myself and say, hey, dude, and that's not going to be the 6th seed anymore. This is going to be something like the 4th or whatever. I take a step back and I say, hey, you're being way too optimistic. And I kind of agree with that. I think the Chargers, at some point this season, are going to stumble at least a couple of games away, right? I think, like I had the Tampa Bay, I changed it on the spot here, but I think we could easily stumble this game. I think there's other, matchups, maybe like Arizona, where the Chargers maybe drop another one here. Because the reality of the situation, guys, is that we are going to lose some football games. Like, this team is off to a really good start, but has been a pretty easy start to the schedule. And we're not going to be this perfect team throughout the course of the entire year. However, this is just kind of looking at the surface of our strength of schedule this year. That's what 13-4 represents here. 13-4 isn't officially what I think is going to happen, but that's what I think the potential is, the ceiling is of this team because of the strength of schedule in 2024. This is a special year, guys. One more time, I'm going to flash this before your eyes and show you, like, the power of the strength of schedule this year, okay? I'm going to actually show you all the games I think we could lose. I think we could lose Pittsburgh. I do. But I certainly think we could lose, Kansas City. We could lose Arizona. We could lose New Orleans. I think we could lose Cincinnati. We could lose Baltimore. I think we could lose Tampa Bay, okay? But look at all these games that I think we could honestly win. We've already taken down Vegas and Carolina. I honestly think we can take on Pittsburgh, even though I just listed them out. I think we could take them on. That's going to be the fork in the road, to see which direction we go through. And I really think the Chargers can take them on this weekend. We got Denver, Arizona, New Orleans, Cleveland. That's a big win. Tennessee, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City again, Tampa Bay, Denver, New England, Vegas again. Like, it really does feel like the strength of schedule hasn't been this good in very many years for the Chargers. When a lot of people say you're being too optimistic, they have them at like 8 wins, 9 wins. I'm like, I would understand that if we were playing the same schedule as last year, maybe even the schedule before that. But this year, the Chargers have an opportunity to be serious threats, I would say solely based off the back of the strength of schedule narrative that they got going on. But once you get into the postseason, I think the Chargers will end up being legitimate threats. And I think you're going to see proof of that in matchups like the Kansas City Chiefs both times. In matchups like the Baltimore Ravens. I think we go up pretty well. We stack up pretty well against the teams, other playoff teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers. And maybe the Cincinnati Bengals, right? We may not win every one of them, but I think we stack up very well. And once you put the Chargers in the postseason with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert and some momentum and some time to understand who they are as a team, I think sky's the limit, man. I think this team is legitimate. I think the strength of schedule helps them out tenfold. And I think this is a great way to kick off the season behind this new head coach with some confidence. Because again, some people will tell me I'm being too optimistic. 13-4, get that off my screen. It's ridiculous. You're being too optimistic. I will say, yeah, that ceiling is real to me. And I would say I agree that it's probably going to be closer to like 10 wins, 11 wins, but that is still very much so playoff bound to me. And if you think it's anything less than 10 wins, I think you're crazy. That means you have us losing to teams like Tennessee, to teams like Atlanta, to teams like Cleveland. I don't think I see us losing any of those. And the strength of schedule is going to really, prove itself as the year goes on, and I think we're at the beginnings of a very serious and special season for Chargers fans. I think right now we'll look back on this video and we'll go, wow, we had no idea what was about to happen. We had no idea the momentum this team would gain and the kind of season Jim Harbaugh would have in his debut. I'm excited, man. I think it'll be cool. This video may end up getting crushed in the comments. I don't care. I'm optimistic. Sue me. But I also think that with cynical minds and people that want to protect themselves from disappointment, I'm not going to dock you on that, okay? But I think there's some logic to that, right? Yeah, logically the Chargers are going to have some trials and we're going to lose games and it's going to be tough. None of this is going to be easy for the Chargers to execute this season. But I also think there really is some logic to the optimist side of things right now too. And I think on top of all the stuff the Chargers got going for them, the head coach, the running game's looking great, the offensive line looks amazing, the defense looks insane. On top of all that stuff, we got ourselves a head coach for the first time in a very long time that is very serious. And on top of that, we have a strength of schedule, which, let's be clear, the Super Bowls have been won off the backs of easy schedules. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like, well, iron sharpens iron, or you want to go up against the best to beat the best, you have to beat the best, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's true, but a lot of times getting into the tournament can be just enough for some teams to excel. Do I see the Chargers as Super Bowl winners this season? I don't think so, but I think we're going to go from one of the worst teams in the NFL to very legitimate playoff contenders this season. And again, it's just the beginning. If we can, this first step in Jim Harbaugh's debut, if we can take that step into the postseason, watch out for this team in the next 3 or 4 years. I honestly, truly believe this team will be Super Bowl contenders in the next 3 to 4 years. It all starts in this season. And ultimately, I think it really starts this weekend. I think, again, you're at this crossroads when facing Pittsburgh. When you're going up against a playoff caliber team, will you stand up to the challenge and excel? Or will you prove that you need more time to sort things out? I think we're going to excel, baby. I'm excited to see it. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up. We're always repping, baby. And stay frosty. People are going to be shocked, man. People are going to be shocked by the end of this year. I guarantee it.